Now, there are some criteria for revelation. There's some rational principles, criteria, to assess whether revelation is from this uncreated creator or not. And let me discuss these criteria for you. Criterion number 1. It must have the correct concept of God, obviously. Because remember what we've been discussing so far, that there must be an uncreated creator that is transcendent, distinct, and disjoint from the universe, outside of the universe. If I create a table, I don't become the table. It must be one, eternal, etc. Now, if a particular revelation says, well, actually God lives on a mountain in the universe, somewhere in India. He has 12 arms, tattoos, and loads of earrings, and his name is, I don't know, Fufula or something, yeah? Are you going to believe that book? I don't have to read the rest of the book. I just have to know the concept of God that they have. And that concept of God goes against fundamental, irrefutable, non-negotiable, rational principles, which is God's outside of the universe, mate. He's distinct and disjoint. He's transcendent. Do you see? So it has to have a correct concept of God. And that's very important. The second criterion is it must be internally and externally consistent. What do we mean by internally and externally consistent? Well, let's take the internal part. Internally consistent means that what it says on page 1 has to agree on what it says on page 100. If it says on page 1, God is 1, but yet on page 100 it says God is 3, we have a problem. If it contradicts itself internally, it means there are either two authors or the author is confused, and that means it can't be from God. So take externally consistent. Externally consistent means it can't go against established reality. This doesn't mean scientific fact, by the way. Revelation can go against scientific fact because scientific facts are not 100% true. When you study the philosophy of science, you know science changes over time because it relies heavily on a thinking process called induction. What is induction? Induction is taking limited observations of the past and concluding for the future. And this is limited, it's probabilistic, it's never 100% true because you may have a future observation that contradicts your previous limited observation. So induction is not 100% true. So when they say scientific fact, and you could talk to any academic scientist, he would say fact with a small f, not with a big F. It changes over time based on future observations and many different other things. So we're not saying for it to be externally consistent, it has to agree with scientific facts. We're saying for it to be externally consistent, it has to agree with established reality. What's established reality? Well, it's irrefutable things like there are trees on planet Earth. If a book says there are no trees on planet Earth, then we are confused. We have issues. If this book says that there are no females on planet Earth, then we have even further problems. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? So it has to be externally consistent. It can't go against established reality from that perspective. So that's the internally and externally consistent. The third criterion is it must contain miracles. In other words, there must be some signs that indicate to the supernatural, that indicate that it's from this uncreated creator. It can't just make a claim without any evidence. That would be blind faith. That would be wrong. That would be inconsistent with the human reality because human beings, when they make claims, they require some kind of evidence, brothers and sisters and friends. So this is why it needs to have some type of miracle. And when you take these three criteria and you apply it to any known revelation, the only revelation that comes out shining is, guess what? Al-Furqan, the criterion, the differentiator, which is the Quran, the recital, the book, the eternal word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these three criterion, just to repeat, are: number 1, must have a correct concept of God. Number 2, must be internally and externally consistent. And number 3, it must contain miracles. And we're going to discuss what a miracle is and what these miracles are in the next episodes, inshallah.